1 Corinthians 13, 1, 8, and 13. If I speak in tongues of mortals or of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have a prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful, or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful, does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never ends. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest thing these is love.
The love chapter, it is called. And indeed it is. We often hear this passage read at weddings. And in that context, it is good to be reminded of what love is, patient and kind, and what it is not, envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. The 1 Corinthians was not written about romantic love. Paul was writing to the church in Corinth to try to get them to stop bickering. As we have talked about the past couple of weeks, the issue was the use or the misuse of spiritual gifts. In encouraging the Corinthians to get along, Paul emphasized that love is everything, and that of the most important ideals for which to strive, the greatest was love. For many years, our logo has contained the motto, "A circle of love in the city." It represents our round sanctuary and the central place of this table in our worship, but it also symbolizes the way we come together for a common purpose, surrounding all we do with support, prayer, and with love. Edwin Markham was a disciples poet of the late 19th and early 20th century, and he wrote these words: "He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in." Markham's words reminds us that our circle is ever widening, welcoming all who come to join us on this journey. Today, two of our newer members come to talk about what drew them in to our circle of love. Bill Robison is an ordained disciples minister, actually, who is always willing to assist with worship, and he serves our congregation as an elder. Lois Detrick has found many avenues of service here at South Street. She is a deacon, a Campbell Supper Club mentor, chair of the education department. She leads the book club, sings in the choir, rings handbells, is on the green team, and started our prayer shawl ministry. How long have you been here? Thanks to both of you for your service and your willingness to share with us today. Bill.
Good morning. I was born a long time ago, October 18, 1960. For those of you who can do the math, don't shout out numbers. But I was actually baptized in July on the 7th in 1974. But my spiritual birth didn't happen until October of 1979, when I found myself in basic training in one of the worst environments that a human being can exist in, I think, after having lived through it. And the chaplain at the base at Fort Gordon, Augusta, Georgia, kind of became the one guy that I went to and talked to many times and got me through that process. With his prompting, I went back to college and finished my bachelor's degree and decided that I was going to become a pastor, and went to seminary and did all of those things that pastors do. And I don't share all of that in order to kind of bore you or to say, I want to say that through my life, I've had the experience of being a part of many congregations. I have been a senior pastor of rural churches. I've been the pastor of small inner city churches. I have been a hospital chaplain and been engaged in the life of ministry in many areas throughout my days. And I've also been a disciple that entire time. So when it came to moving to Springfield, Missouri, back in 2007, I was offered a position to teach at Forest Institute, and I came here. And it became a no-brainer. Where was I going to go to church? I was going to go to church in a disciples' congregation. After sampling the disciples' congregations here in Springfield, I landed here. The reason I landed here, I have learned over many years that congregations have personalities. Some of them are very warm and very inviting, and some of them are not. This was one that was. My wife and I often walk into churches, and because you're the pastor, everybody wants to know you. Everybody comes up and shakes your hand. Everybody comes up and wants to share who they are with you. When you walk in the door as a layperson, on the other hand, that doesn't happen very often. There are some churches that you can go into and sit down in the pew and maybe not even be spoken to by a single person in the entire time that you go there. That was my experience of some of the disciples' congregations here in Springfield. But not so here. From the day we walked in, people stepped across the pew, shook our hands, made us feel welcome. I can look out there and I can see many of you this morning. Folks who reached out and said, welcome. And, you know, Steve, you say, why do people stay where they're at? I think it's that spirit of welcome that keeps me staying, that makes me say yes every time Janet calls me up and says, can you do something? Because I feel at home here. And I feel the love that this congregation generates towards folks. And I agree wholeheartedly with Steve that this is a circle. It is a circle that is ever growing and large enough to take in whomever wants to come and be a part of it. And because it is open, because it is so accepting of everyone, that's what keeps me coming back. And I am very much, very pleased to be spending my spiritual life here at South Street.
I am not a minister. And because I have been teaching in the college level, you don't want to hear me talking for an hour. So thank you. So I have my notes written out so I won't stray too far. I have 5 minutes. I first visited South Street on the suggestion of a friend who knew Bill and I appreciated good church music. That Sunday really was very favorable on several counts. First, Janet came around and greeted us before the service. That had never happened to either of us. Then, the organist exceeded our hopes. And the choir was very good. I had spotted Mary Martin in the choir, whom I had known for several years in the League of Women Voters. And after the service, she came roaring out of the choir loft and gave me one of her big old hugs and was so genuinely glad to see us and introduced us to several of her friends. The service itself was a format that was comfortable and familiar, and we felt like we had come home. The sermon was intelligent, well-constructed, and one that gave both guidance and was well delivered. Then as we were leaving, I spotted the church logo in the narthex, a circle of love in the city. I grinned and said to Bill, "Did you notice that?" Bill knew that in my formative years, as I tried to distill just what watchword could sum up the way I wanted to live, I had decided love was it. As we got into the car to go to lunch, Bill asked, "When do we join?" But before I joined a church, I had to be sure it fit me. I was impressed with the evidence on inclusiveness. Having had a brother who was gay, and then seeing Caleb wear a rainbow stole one morning warmed my heart. Hearing Janet read the schedule of things happening that week, I wondered just where I fit in. The sermons agreed with my theological framework, and on the second Sunday, I was asked to join the handbells. I had been involved in handbells for some 25 years and had asked about handbells here, but the next Sunday, 2 or 3 people were eagerly asking if I would be part of the bells. Then I was eager to be involved in supper club, tutoring children in the community. So I volunteered for that, and it grew from there. Since I enjoy baking, I also volunteered to help at Grant Beach. The first year, I went one day to apple pie days. I didn't know it was an everyday thing. While Janet was on her sabbatical, I was asked to join the choir, even though my voice is long past its prime. Wordy said, "There were lots of us like that in the choir." The family feel of the choir is very special, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I was asked to be chair of the education committee, kind of natural for an old teacher and an educational administrator. The first thing I knew, I was asked to be a deacon, where I found more outlets to share that love. Then the green team was formed. Now, as an old mountain climber and hiker, I developed such a deep love for the beautiful earth we are lucky to inherit. And watching Weyerhaeuser timber rape so much of the land with their clear cutting, I began efforts as an environmentalist. Yes, the green team was something I wanted to be a part of. But there were a couple of things missing. One was a prayer shawl ministry. I knew from previous experience so many people truly felt God's love with their shawl wrapped closely around them. I asked Janet. So that started with her blessing. Then I missed a book club to keep me current with recommended literature and the opportunity to discuss those books. I've learned to be careful what you ask for. You will probably be chairing it. So, how did I become involved in this circle of love in the city in the last 2.5 years? Some things I was asked to do, but some things I volunteered for. You see, I was born in a loving family where both of my parents were active lay people in the Methodist Church. They were excellent examples of what the laity was all about. Being Methodist, where the ministers are moved fairly often, I learned that the church is not just the minister. It is truly laity that makes the church. The minister or ministers are still the leaders, hopefully inspiring like Janet, and guides us to pull it all together. The church has been a part of my life always. The extent to which South Street seeks to be relevant thrills me, and I feel blessed to be able to share in this circle of love in the city.